Mr. Otsile. So I think we've come to that part of the program where we are going into, I think we need to do a poet, the lover's poet, Kiorata. And then we will move on to the program with the interactive session for questions and answers or comments on the chat.
Khomu khunwana e mo sakeng e nkgopotsa magosi ya rona ngwana wa lla bagolo ba rona ba ka setso sa rona se a boribe. Nka be ke re le nna ke kgosi mefela kgalemo ke gore bogosi kupe bogosi bo a tsalelwa ga se le tsoku ga bo itlhodibi kgopolo ya nkita tsebe re bitsana ka melodi khotla tsebe tswana ke latlhegetswe ke lenyena phatsimong thutubulu morotolwa ke banyana ke ita tlhabane go botsa tsa marapo suleng tsa ga sedupe tsa sala di gasa mephateng ka latlhela matše mabedi mabele tsa kgakala ka khoma morre mogolo sejaro mabone ga rra tsatsi pupa ga di tlhakwa khomo kgolokwa pelo ya tsilwane ya motho e dirwa ka legapa la kgopo ga utlwela dikgadima taola ke thakadu sepela tse ding matsatsa botsang dipudi taela e tswa go mosarana o losika wa rongwa ke romilwe ke tsa marapo o suleng tsa rena ke moswela ga bono swela nageng monna mo tsamaeleto ga lefele seroga ba lapona le dia ba jana la lona lo letona la galowe a ke sa ka isa phuti kgala gare ke tle ke gopole khotla tsa ga motlharo bo phadima le bakhidi tota lina ele mmaba go boka motlharo wa ga letlhware mmina tshweni di tshweni tsa ga malope o masilo tlhagarepa tsa ga motlharo o mohurutsi tsikela tsa ga mmakiretse mosadi wa motshweneng papina tshweni bata se ba riba o ka engwa melema kopong ka digama o sa di tlhapela lefatshe lena la batho bantsho re lefilo ke bomang kgomo tsona ke tsa bomang re le badisa ba tsona bana ka nnete ra kgaratla re tsoma kgaraga lefatsheng la batlhaping bo marumo batlhaping bo moduane batlhaping bo molee batlhaping bo phuduhutswane batlhaping bo maidi batlhaping bo maine lona ba tlhapelo matotototo a bopeletse sa kgatshipi mo teng ditlhapi tsa go supa lenyako tlhapi tsa go solofela leraga a itse mo tsana mo tlhaping ga engwe le matsetse ke bo dishashe ba ikutlwa gaga gape wa fela ke bagale ba madibeng bo kubu le bokwena ke mo tsana ba khibe makgatsetse ya ga mmaditlhong ba simane ba tshabile go bolatlhware ba tsana ba ibolaya nte ke libese matlhwame kwa botlhabatsatsi ke bone merafe e metlhanong nte ke libese matlhwame kwa botlhabatsatsi ke bone merafe e metlhano ke bone ba khatla khafela morena wa bakhatla setibelo molelo morulo o khoti kholo bana ba stafana sa morileng khosi o mokopo tshukudu a golegana mane nana ana khabo monna ga betlo poto kwa hela ke tshwene pagameni tlhare fa re bona motho bere hi ho kana ke letong ke re le rampetšhane ke apere borukgo ba metswa dipudi ke a kgasediti ke latisa motlhala ke a kwa ga lowe ntare ke ba le ba kwena ke ba le ba ga mmangwato ke ba le ba hurutsi ke ba le ba ngwaketsi ke ba le ba fokeng ke ba le ba phaleng ke ba le ba pedi ke ba le ba rolombo motibua ke ba le barlombo nthuwa a thibela paledi ke ba le barlombo seleka ke ba le barlombo ratshidi ke ba le barlombo morakile ke a kgaotsa ke a lesa ke ba phegelwane ga ke batle go nkga kgomo motlhana ka pako ga ke batle go nkga kgomo motlhana ka poko ke kate kwa morago jaaka tonke tswana robe ke re khotla tsebe tswana rona ga re batle masokwane nyana se bapa le mo re khotleng tsebe tswana loboko ke namana tholo barlong dilala mogopeduja tholo ke moja le mang ke mila go barlong bane ba sa tshware tshipi ga bana mothudi barlong ba re poese a go le mabele a tsetse o tla senya pula ke morolong yo taba yo maseng maila go khotla go ka kwa go itlhaolelo ke ga o kgwate.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now proceeding, and I think we've been re-energized by that musical interlude there. And I see the colleagues in the chat are very much rejuvenated by such. And Kumesang bringing us some ululating there. Colleagues, I think we need to bring the conversation based on the presentations. We've been long defining Indigenous knowledge systems as holistic, multidisciplinary, locally rooted body of knowledge, technologies, innovations, beliefs, and value systems. It encompasses a community's worldview and ways of knowing and reflects the integrated way of knowing and practice in our daily lives. So I think the presentations that were made in the session prior asked us, and I think it's even echoed here by Mompati's comment, that we need to find constructive topics. We also need, as graduates that are going or students of IKS, see, we need that there's a huge untapped market for IKS-based products based on our worldviews, based on our ways of knowing. How can we rally ourselves as IKS graduates? How can we put ourselves together in a system to bring innovation? So we have Ms. Masemula, that traditional medicine is a small part of IKS. It extends to law, society, organization, functionality, food. So we must not make the mistake of not scrutinizing what the scientific method conceals or neglects if we choose it as an arbiter. We also have Kentani asking for, does the very degree that we've studied of IKS have in it any tools to empower students beyond it being just a qualification? So I think I'm posing this. I know our panelists have access to the chat. And if there's any aspects that you'd like to reiterate from your presentation or expand on, other panelists that are present here today, if you'd like to weigh in on some of the comments. There is the perception that IKS centers or university bodies that have connections with private and public sectors should have some sort of bridging program with these sectors, so that students, as well as public, private sectors, as well as the economy, can benefit from the IKS-based way of knowing for economic growth and innovation. Colleagues, if any of the panelists would like to respond.
Yeah, Dr. Mayashri,
Yes, sir.
I see the hand. I don't know, it's from Prof. Modise. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Let us go. Our panelist, Prof. Modise, you are welcome. Prof. Modise?
Yes, hello?
Your hand is raised, sir.
No, I'm sorry. It must have been a mistake of some sort. Sorry,
Not
please
a
go
problem,
ahead.
Prof.
Yeah,
Not
okay,
a problem. So I'm going to call on the panelists that were in our prior session, Dr. Barit Singh, Dr. Weisheit, and Mr. Mompati, to please, if you can, give us some follow-up thoughts based on the comments made. I'll start with you, Dr. Weisheit. Students, graduates are looking to universities to bridge the gap for them as the institutional support as indicated in your presentation. Do you have a comment on that?
Yes, my additional comment is that universities need to develop a conducive innovation policy. Some of the policies making the innovator less benefiting from the innovation than the institution. And in one case, I don't want to name the university, the innovator's name is not even on the patent. He developed an herbal ointment, and in the end, when the patent was written, the name of that innovator was not there. And that is very demoralizing. And when that is getting to know, people will not come to your institution. So there must be a benefit sharing agreement. Of course, this is a win-win. Both sides have obligation and both sides have responsibilities. this must be in a fair share for sites to be beneficial. So the innovation incubation policies are important. Secondly, definitely, as I said, attracting funding and also providing the ethical and safety research on the products. For example, if you have herbal medicine and it's a novel product, there must be done enough literature review of the plant and then also basic safety testing of toxicology, long-term, short-term toxicology, cancerogenity and mutagenity, so a different way of checking on safety. And that is important to create the trust in the customer and also the obligation of the incubator or the health or university to make sure that innovations are safe to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weisheit. I think we're now going to Mr. Mompati, please. You can just articulate some of the comments you've made in the chat already.
Okay, now thank you, Doc. Doc, I can say I tried to answer some of the questions. The question that was asked by Ndatekwena of the students not having topics. Then I said to him that in my discussion with Dr. Wade was he will arrange a meeting for me to go and do the presentations for the students. Because I like I said, we need students who will be able to do the researches regarding a whole lot of our indigenous topic. In what I'm doing today, like I said, I'm working with donkey milk. We need students who will do the research about the usage of donkey products in the olden days, who will go to the communities and ask them regarding the donkeys. I mean, during our meeting with Dr. Koitse and his team, I said to them that there are so many things that people don't know about donkeys because those things are not documented. So it's for the students to go there and do the research so that at least those things should be documented. I mean, for argument's sake, you'll be surprised that donkey urine is also healthy for people who are experiencing labor pains. It helps through that. So we need people who will be able to document things like that. So now I'm available to assist students in terms of formulating their topics, but I will do that in partnership with Dr. Koitse as the acting director of IKS in Northwest. I thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mompati. I think there's another comment here. Can the IKS also be linked with library studies for knowledge sharing with regards to indigenous knowledge and also for research purposes? So this is having access to resources on indigenous knowledge to inform. And I think while we are looking for other points or questions of interest, is this issue of an IKS-based knowledge life cycle. Knowledge shouldn't be produced in real life. Knowledge is not produced in one place, managed in another place, and then protected in another place. In social practice, knowledge is produced, managed, preserved, protected, all in one space. So if we can understand the knowledge life cycle in that way, we can also appreciate that the Western-based systems of how knowledge was compartmentalized into a library, then into an archive, then to a technology transfer office. How do we find synergy and alignment amongst these structures in order to pursue the IKS-based way of knowing? So that was, I see Mompati is sharing his contact details. Colleagues, young people, all those that are interested, you may find the contact details there. I'm just going to itemize those, perhaps put a few questions out. For researchers, for students taking on IKS, what processes and criteria do you use to identify your research project? To what extent are the IK holders participating in the identification and recognition of that project? And how did the participation of the knowledge holders in recognizing the need for research deepen your understanding of the challenges that they face? And how can those problems therefore be addressed in partnership with the knowledge holders? What concerns, values, principles, objectives, and outcomes from your research inform the IKS policy and the IK Act? These are visionary things that the country has done. So how can your research inform, influence? How enabling are the policy and the act? So, and why is it important? Do you investigate that further? Do you expand on that and build on that in your research? What resources are required to carry out the research? And can the project be defined in terms of discipline or field, or is it very much interdisciplinary? Is it very much representative of an IKS way of doing something? And if it does cut across disciplines and fields of study, what methodology does it require? Ladies and gentlemen, I am pulling from a sort of workshop that was run, I see Anke's hand is up again, by Prof. Nkondo. And these were some of the questions he raised to the young people to make your IKS-based research and outcomes very much relevant, which then paves the path for you in the industry, public and private sectors. Dr. Weisheit?
Yeah, thank you much for the question. The first one is on IK policy. Now, our
Dr. Weisheit, we are not able to hear you clearly. I believe the network is a challenge.
Excuse me, I got disturbed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, an incoming phone call disturbed my call. Now, the Bara University as a center of excellence provide expertise also to the policymakers. For example, we are invited to develop the national Indigenous IK policy. So we are maybe invited to consultation. So that's our input, as we are now seen as a technical knowledge hub on issues of Indigenous knowledge.
Dr. Weisheit, sorry, your audio is very poor. We can hardly hear you, ma'am.
You can't hear me.
You are very soft, unless that's on my end.
Yeah, secondly, we have Indigenous knowledge holder student and researcher engagement, organizing field attachment for students, issues which are developed jointly identified from the knowledge holder and student will then be formulating research topics. That's very important, that students in university do not study any topic for the sake of studying a topic, but attaching the research topic to a real identified of the community, and in our case, traditional health practitioners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mompati. And Dr. Weisheit, please, I could encourage you to just type your response or your comment in the chat as well, so that we can capture it in case the audio is unclear.
Doc, thanks, Doc. As I was busy reading the charts there, someone asked about two things. Is there a market for our Indigenous knowledge-based companies? And I want to say to that person that there is a huge market and there's a demand for Indigenous-based companies to tap into that. There's a huge market, and that market is just untapped. So I would encourage our students to say they need to start registering companies and start looking at that. I mean, for argument's sake, in Freiberg, as you go to Kuruma and Ganyesa, there are people who are harvesting with devil's claw there, that side. And those people are selling that to other companies to go and make medicine. So there are people also who are harvesting with African potato. So we need people who are our graduates to say they need to start tapping into those markets. They need to start looking into that project of Devil's Claw. How can they make medicine out of that? And also the other thing, like I said on my presentation, we need people who will teach our traditional healers in terms of direction for usage. I mean, if you go and buy flu medication, they will tell you drink it 3 times a day. So we need people who will assist our people to start looking at the consumption of those traditional medicine, because we end up, most of the people end up overdosing those medications. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, for those who are not business-minded people who are business-minded, let them create companies and employ those students who are not business-minded. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mompati. I'm looking for more comments. I see there are lots of question and answer going on in the Q&A box as well. Thank you very much, Utsile, for addressing those questions in that chat. If I can continue some of the guiding thoughts in your research with IK holders, how are we going to assess the range and level of knowledge from both sides, whether it be yourself as the student and the IK holder or the custodian? And is there criteria or methods used to recognize any prior learning? Is it adequate or based on whose norms? So who is deciding whether something is relevant or not? Is it yourself? Is it the knowledge holder? Is it the community? I think those are some of the questions we need to start asking ourselves as IK holders. And I do believe in Dr. Weisheit's contribution there. She did indicate there's a student apartment. So students basically go out into the field and they spend time with the community members. I think another question which Mr. Mompati had mentioned there was, how about urine all over and above the milk was useful. You find that if you can do a comparative understanding of your research area, can the Indigenous African knowledge system benefit in any way from Asian, Arabic, Western knowledge systems? And if so, how? Are there similarities? Are there differences, and why? So traditionally also we find that our Indigenous knowledge systems are embodied or communicated through African languages. How translatable is this in the English domain or the language domain of your institution? And can we deal, or are you able to deal with the issue of untranslatability? So I think these are some of the other points in terms of language. Can we rally ourselves as IKS graduates and create a group of us as ambassadors for promoting languages? Every sector needs some sort of translation. Our languages are being left behind. So every private sector every public sector would require language translation. Can we pull ourselves together and sort that? We need training for our continuous professional development of all of those that are currently in employ in government, in private sector, within and outside the country even. Can we start putting ourselves together? I see a hand, sorry, the screen is a bit short. I think it's Dr. Makanike. Doctor, are you able to unmute?
Yes, thank you very much. I think I just wanted to come in to add on the comments that were made by Mr. Mompati. with regard to the market in terms of the traditional or product and services. Because I was just laughing to myself now that the question that was being raised now, I'm sitting here and I'm drinking herbal green tea from China. And that speaks to the market that is available, because we are not taking space to that. And a lot of Chinese products are coming into the country and people are consuming it because they don't have alternative. I was trying to also look at the COVID-19 situation. There was, a lot of herbs that people were consuming without even process the traditional knowledge that they were using to fight or protect themselves against the virus. So the market is huge. It's only that we also acknowledge the fact that, not all IKS, graduates are entrepreneurs, that we acknowledge, but there's a lot of space around that they can create jobs. They can be assisted to create jobs for themselves and others around that space. So I think if there are business ideas, entrepreneurial ideas that are out there, I think we as institutions that are offering IKS, I think there's a need for us to come together and as consortium and develop, project and provide, lucrative opportunities so such ideas can flourish, because the market is there. Everyone is going herbal. Everyone is going traditional in terms of what they eat, in terms of, the lotions that people are applying these days. So the market is really huge. I just wanted to comment on that only for now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I don't know if Mr. Mompati, that is your hand again, sir. I'd like to bring Dr. from CSIR, Dr. Bharat Singh, in to please respond to some of the comments, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure which comment.
I think we're talking about, institutional support. So government has, as you indicated, has an instrument of the CSIR, and the level of support, not only in traditional medicine, perhaps, but in other sectors, other areas of expertise and competencies of our local communities across the country. Perhaps how can we find space and support?
Okay, thank you so much, Chair, for that question. There's always a space at CSIR to support local communities, including traditional health practitioners, right, in deepening their entrepreneurial skills or abilities. I'll make an example of a research project that we have just concluded, and I didn't include it in my presentation. The project was funded by the Department of Science and Innovation through their IK-based technologies division within the department, led by Dr. Ank Chabalala. So the project was mainly on research and product development in support of traditional health practitioners in South Africa. How this project was conceptualized is that CSIR is on a daily basis approached by the entrepreneurs, traditional health practitioners, in connection with their products, which they would like to generate scientific data in order to substantiate their traditional uses, and also to register and subsequently to access the market which they have identified for their product. So from that perspective, because I will tell you from my personal experience interacting with traditional healers, is that they want to become entrepreneurs. They want their knowledge to be protected They want to be recognized, right? They want to make money. And based on those reasons, I fully agree with it. So then the project was then conceptualized based on that reasons. And then a proposal was developed, submitted to the Department of Science and Innovation, reviewed and subsequently approved. And then it was a pilot project, right? And then we selected the 6 traditional health practitioners through a competitive process who were then incubated at the CSR to receive a support to improve on their existing technologies and then also provide a capacity building, right, on how to start a business. And then we partnered with our sister organizations such as the Innovation Hub from the business development perspective, as well as the South African Bureau of Standards on further capacity development on how to commercialize a natural product on the market. So, and these particular traditional health practitioners were then supported and their products were then improved through our scientific research and development tools, and they were packaged, business plans were developed, and companies were registered, and websites were developed for these healers, right? So what I'm saying is there is a support, and then also to support the local communities and the traditional health practitioners at CSIR. And I've been sharing these experiences with Northwest University to say, because it's a university, they are generating the knowledge through their interaction with the different various community structures across the country, to say, how do we package that knowledge into a business offering for these communities, right? We can use our experiences, the models that we have developed at the CSIR in line with the legislative environment of the country on indigenous knowledge systems, right? To support those communities to say, this is the knowledge that we have generated from this, and now we are coming back to those communities now to empower them based on their knowledge, because they are generating knowledge through students, training and supervisions. So they need to go back to those communities to say, thank you for working with us, and this is a dissertation from the student, and these are the plans in moving forward. And we would like to suggest that we take this knowledge to empower you in terms of productization and then business, and then how we can do that. If communities are in agreement with that plan, then we can work together with them in developing a comprehensive proposal that can be submitted to potential funders.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bharat Singh. I think that's a very practical sort of solution going forward.
Doc?
Yes, Mr. Mompati.
Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem.
I just wanted to also add something, as Dr. Bharat was speaking there, that one of the things that we want to do in a company, we are more on we don't want to use this Western ingredients in our cosmetic products. We want to use your natural plants. So I think another opportunity for students is for them to start growing plants for cosmetics, and most companies will come and buy those plants. I mean, plants like aloe vera, they need to start planting those things. Plants like roses, garlic, lavender. So opportunities are there. And our government now is talking about land redistribution. So I think they need to tap that and start planting those indigenous plants that will add value as time goes on, because nowadays people want to, I mean, I'm using donkey milk as it is. I'm drinking it, and also I sometimes use it to cleanse my face with it. So it's very, helpful in terms of keeping someone wrinkles away from my face. So plants like that are also helpful. So there's a lot of opportunities. So hence I'm saying to Dr. Kwesi that we need to have a follow-up session where we'll sit down with the students and discuss about business opportunities, and take it from there. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mompati. I think there are a few points before we close the interactive session and move on to the next, which I'd like to highlight. The first being, I'm just going to go to the most recent one, that IKEA's products and services have little support in the South African market without the infusion of our metaphysics and our policies. And most of these still remain criminalized. This is from Nkumiseng. And so based on her findings from her research, the technological divide is still unnecessarily excluding our local communities from participating meaningfully in the economy. Before I touch on the issue of language, Dr. Weisheit, there's a comment here about successful entrepreneurs are motivated by problems that exist in the society. They're frustrated and curious about the impact of the identified challenges, and they then think of alternative solutions. Most importantly, they study the whole value chain that will underpin their solution and their contribution. And by studying the environment where the production will happen, the processing, packaging, basically the entire value chain, they're able to invest time and energy and then avoid starting off an enterprise that will collapse later on. So there was the point by Mr. Eshun, and I'm going to perhaps invite him. He brought up the aspect of communicating using art and social commentary. And I brought the next point was that, do we really think our indigenous languages are just for communication, or is it a repository for our knowledge, our innovation, our science, our technology, and our values? So Mr. Eshun? Mr. Eshun, if you're able to unmute, please.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I believe as I'm speaking on the hello, good day. Chair, good day, everyone. Good day. All the dignitaries here. On the point of, as we are speaking on innovation has to do with creativity, where I believe we can use our African indigenous knowledge in fine arts as a source of social commentary. But it's, fine art is quite broad, so I will narrow it to a multimedia, where we can use our art very wisely to the benefits of the society and also those who want to serve as a profession in that aspect. In terms of packaging, like Doctor was talking about medicine or health, currently I'm designing a label for health food in terms of documentaries, where we can use fine art through documentary, that is a videography, graphic designs, and so on. And even our symbols, African symbols, I believe it's a high time that we need to portray them in printing, textiles, where it will serve as a communication to the public, and so on. So I believe there's a huge market as far as especially even in South Africa. There's a huge market where students can also go into that profession, which they can get, as far as we are talking about decent job, they can get something decent for themselves. I have done a series of publications, which I use our African motifs as a form of a cartooning, where maybe one of these days, when the chances are there, I'll present few of illustrations that I've used for kids, for what is it, the basic school, for as a learning materials for them. So for fine art, I believe there are lots that we can use as far as IKS is concerned. Our own African arts can be used as a form of a commentary, social commentary to the public. I don't know if there's a question that can come in for me to answer, how these arts can be used wisely in terms of packaging, in terms of publication, in terms of even us, we have done a series of concepts to fight against crime and so on, to fight against teenage pregnancy and so on, as a illustration. So when we want to get more into want to get more into innovation, we can use art, and art can be used to play all sectors. We can use it to do a lot of things in medicine, can use it in all spheres. So Doctor, hello.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eshun. I think you've given us a very fair and I think comprehensive understanding of the depth of contribution of Indigenous African art, specifically the oral tradition, symbols, and we even had demonstration of that through the use of music today. It wasn't just for entertainment. I think that's the mistake we've made all along. It's not an entertainment. It's a way of knowing. It's a way of being that we can use to articulate. The way to communicate and disseminate knowledge isn't just through academic papers. So I think that's where we tend to go a bit wrong. I think as a closing, Mr. Eshun, I think thank you very much for that. I would like to maybe invite 2 minutes from our panelists just to round off on the thinking. So I'm going to start with Mr. Mompati, then Dr. Weisheit, and then Dr. Bharat Singh, please. Mr. Mompati.
Let me unmute here. Now, what I can say, Doc, is I would like to thank the IKS department under Dr. Boite and his staff for organizing this event. And I hope that the students will take an opportunity to really start creating jobs for themselves. And also, like I said, I'm available to share my experience with them. And also, I think we'll still have more sessions with Dr. Gwede and his staff. And I'd like to say thank you to also you, Doc, for a smooth running as a chairperson of the event. And thank you.
Mr. Mompati, much appreciated. Dr. Weisheit, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. My final comment is that the first level of supporting indigenous knowledge to be further developed and young people taking on the trade and the indigenous knowledge in these different aspects, health, social theme, engineering, architecture, is done by supporting the younger generation of the indigenous knowledge holders themselves. So the first line of support is the younger generation of the indigenous knowledge holders themselves. That will be the starting point by supporting them in the various levels of education and skilling. And then later, collaboration with other non-IK holders who are interested in the indigenous knowledge. And in this way, when you support the younger generation of IK holders, you have less challenges with the indigenous knowledge IPR because it remains in the family. Thank you very much.
Dr. Weishart, thank you very much for sharing your insights and joining us all the way from Uganda. And we now have Dr. Bharat Singh to take us to the close of this session.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. In closing, I would like to say that there are opportunities, definitely. There are opportunities, especially in South Africa, because we have a very strong legislative framework on IKS, institutional arrangements. We have the funding agencies that are now dedicating their funding towards IKS program. I can give an example. A Technology Innovation Agency is one of the agencies that are really, they have dedicated funding instruments for IKS. You go to the IDC, Industrial Development Corporation. However, the journey of entrepreneurship is not easy. Although it is easy to register a company, but to run a business is not easy. What I would like to suggest to the university, Northwest University Mafeking campus, is that they need to consider including entrepreneurship, right, as an elective module, right, in addition to core modules from first year up to maybe to honors degree, and entrepreneurship and integrating that within the indigenous knowledge system paradigm. It must be designed to meet the what IKS is all about, right? That will start triggering questions in student minds to say, oh, okay, I don't need to be necessarily be in the academia, for instance, because there are those students who have those business minds, but they just need a push. So I think if we can introduce that elective module on entrepreneurship designed within the principles of indigenous knowledge systems with regards to especially community engagements, that I think would be a useful thing to do. And then also linking that from the practical perspective, like as I've mentioned, CSIR, our doors are always opened. Those students can come to CSIR research facilities. We expose them, this is what we do in this area, and then also linking data to other programs, for instance, at Innovation Hub, as South African Bureau of Standards. Like students need to be exposed to all these institutional arrangements. The TIA, they must come and present what the opportunities are there, IDC and so forth. So, and then also meet with the other entrepreneurs who can come and share their stories, their challenges, their successes, everything. I think that will just bring that, it will make an IKS more exciting. I'm not saying it's not exciting at the moment, but it will bring that exciting and give students an options to think about. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the invitation. Much appreciated.
Dr. Bharat Singh, thank you very much for enlightening us on the areas of partnership with CSIR and the areas of support as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move with the program out of the interactive session and now into the next thematic area covering the issue of IKS and the private sector. And I'm just, as we invite I think it's Mr. Monaruri who's going to help us chair and facilitate this session. I'm just going to bring up this one point, and I think that's what the last point on the chat is also talking about. Because most of our Indigenous knowledge systems are community owned, what are the implications of that when it comes to commercialization? Colleagues? All right, so I'm going to invite Mr. Monaruri to please join us as the facilitator for the next session. Mr.
Good day, delegates, IKS ambassador, Indigenous holders, Indigenous knowledge holders. My name is Monaruri Biratsahai. I'm a lecturer at IKS Center at the Northwest University. I'm also a PhD candidate within the field. My first degree basically is IKS. I did it by the time it was called Bachelor of Arts in Indigenous Knowledge Systems. So thank you very much for joining us and to stay with us in this important discussion. The current theme that we are going to deal with is IKS and the private sector. And I have three panelists who will share their knowledge and expertise. The first panelist on the list is Dr. Chabalala. If I may invite you, Dr. Chabalala, the stage is yours. He's the director from Department of Science and Innovation within the IKS Knowledge Base and Technologies that direct within that unit from Department of Science and Technology. Thank you, Dr. Chabalala. The stage is yours, sir. Is Dr. Chabalala in? Dr. Chabalala? Okay, while we wait Dr. Chabalala to come in, I think maybe we can proceed and maybe he will join us later. Maybe there's some other engagement. Let me call Mesemela from Mimi Trading Company. I'll be sharing her presentation and she will take us through her presentation. Mesemela, are you there? Mesemela? I think colleagues are not here. I don't know what is the problem. Maybe they have network problems where they are. I need advice from the organizers.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Can you hear me now, my chair?
Yes.
Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Mulebohe Nsemela, Managing Director of Mimi Trading and Projects. I create Northwest University Management and the leadership in the Faculty of Natural Science and Agricultural Sciences. Thank you very much for having me today. It's an honor to have this opportunity to share my experience under the Indigenous knowledge systems as an entrepreneur, emerging businesswoman in South Africa. Like I said, I'm coming from the company called Mimi Trainings and Projects, whereby we are specializing in the products of this indigenous herbs, of which it's called cannabis or hemp. I hope the student will find it fascinating to talk about this. Can you go to the next slide, my chair? Can you go to the next slide? Yes, there are many uses and benefits that cannabis or hemp produce as indigenous hemp. Thank you very much. I will also try to minimize there I am. Yeah, thank you very much. Mimi Trading and Projects so it needs to venture in the green economy with a background of business management, wholesales and retails business skills. Mimi P2I Ltd has been producing cannabis cosmetics and essential oils for past 5 years with the intention to export for better revenue while applying indigenous knowledge systems. I saw earlier that there was a student who said that he or she is not an entrepreneur, so the topic should try to be as versatile as possible. This is something that I thought today I can present to the students as the crisis is there of unemployment, post-graduates, they cannot easily find the placement. So I would like to say that this is a green economy. This indigenous herb that has been made to be a monster drug that we were not supposed to talk about or see the past 36 months, I suppose, post the constitutional ruling. Benefits, you can go back to the slide, my chair. The uses and benefits, the benefits of this plant is that it can bridge the unemployment rate, you know. It can also create sustainable livelihood while we are preserving our cultures and traditions. That is something that is very, very, very huge. That does not need to change who you are, but tapping into the industry. So I see that most of people think technology comes from nowhere. The IP of technology is the indigenous knowledge, the natural knowledge that a particular person can have, and then later tap into the technology based on the industry and the dynamics of the industry. The production can be made from various parts of the raw cannabis, indigenous plant, using leaves or seeds to gather oils. From the stalks, you can extract fibers. You can have your hemp. The value chain of hemp is very vast. The technology combines to that IKS while enhancing the production to the end products. Like I said, the technology comes in whereby we talk big industries now where you need to produce more, because definitely with this industry, it's going to be growing as everybody now trying to tap into it or understand it, as the law is also changing. We're using the basic law of business principles where we say where there's a need, there should be a demand. You know, where there's the demand should be a supply. You know, that is the way to go, because we cannot ignore the fact that the world needs more of the environmentally friendly industries, and cannabis is the answer to all that. With the IKS products, you will always have your natural touch with it that will describe your uniqueness and authenticity, because some of the indigenous practitioners, they are too skeptical to expose themselves, thinking that they're going to lose the value of their knowledge or their products. So that is a big no. Everything that you do, that you produce by yourself with your own IKS, you will definitely have a unique touch on it, and it will always be authentic as much as it can, like Mimi Trading and Project is doing. You can slide my chair. Otherwise, the pictures on the left, it's the indigenous way of doing it. That is how I do it, post to use the machinery. This is the process that I'm doing. You can skip it, just indigenous way of drying. This is how I dry my raw cannabis. Based on the constitution, actually based on the cannabis bill, that is a draft, one can only possess about 8 trees of the plants if you have 2 adults in your living space or area. If it's only 1 adult, you're only allowed to have 4 trees, but that is a draft bill of the cannabis bill for adult use in the country. So this is how I dry my herb from cultivating it at my backyard, as I'm using my indigenous knowledge to do everything. You can skip the slide, Honorable Chair. Can you hear me, Chair? Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Go back to the previous slide.
This one.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, here I was saying, okay, you have skipped that one. I was saying that is the current methodologies that I'm using. The previous one again, you can go back again. You can go back, not forward, go back. Again, the last one there. Thank you very much. I was saying on my, no, you went far. You can go forward. The next, I think I should share the screen. Through you, Chair, can I share the screens?
Yes, you can share the screen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I will just skip to the slide number 4. I was saying, thank you very much for your cooperation, Honorable Chair, with me battling with my network as we assisting. I was saying on my right-hand side, it's the process, the current process that I'm using as an Indigenous knowledge practitioner, cooking my herbs from the pot like that. I infuse my Indigenous plants for aroma, can use a rosemary, your lavender, using cannabis or hemp as a base. And then below, it's when after cooking it, but on your left hand side, you can see the machinery there, of which is the technology now, the 4th industrial revolution, whereby we need to tap into that, most of us who are into this space, because like I said, where there's a demand, there should be a supply. That is a basic principle of business as entrepreneurs. So with the technology now, it just compresses the properties that you need to use, and then it saves time, So that is something that I was saying, that tapping into the big markets, one need to consider utilizing technology as well, And then there's a method that I was saying, I'm drying my herb before I can cook it. And then the target market, the student can always think out of the box. Like with my first slide that I've said, there are many uses and benefits of cannabis. Remember, in the agriculture or natural science, one can always look on where do you fit in. In agriculture, we have economists, you have agronomists, you have all these components that is dealing with agriculture. But us embracing the Indigenous knowledge, you can look on your food, a component, medicinal, African traditional medicines. You can look on essential oils, you can look on nutraceuticals, you can look on livestock bedding, of which it's something that is complementary to your faculty. Animal bedding, the market is there. Overseas, the market is there. Locally, the market is there. It's very good, affordable, environmentally friendly, and all that. Livestock feeding, it's something that a student can look on innovations, because I understand the theme is to merge this grassroots, is to nurture the students, to encourage them to think out of the box and say that, where do you bring the change in our lifetime, bridging the gap of unemployment and still enjoying the economy of the country and having our pie, a piece of this big value chain. Cannabis is so broad. You can do your textiles, you can do your automotives, you can do your plastic, body care, construction. So students really need to indicate if they're interested, and then you can see how can we bring more of the workshops and training post the summit, because it's a green market that is there that needs Indigenous people to tap into it. We cannot afford to be having an overseas a market floating our country while we have the issues of unemployment. So the target market can always be shops, your cosmetic shops, your herbal stores based on cosmeceuticals now, and maybe your eatables or nutraceuticals, being your health supplements and all that, your individuals, exhibitions, trade shows. Now we're using the virtual space, of which it's more also proactive in terms of reaching the masses and making your business be known, and there's obviously a big market on the export, because other countries has been doing cannabis products before. It's not just us, South Africa. So the market is already there. You will always obviously need to have your team if you want to be in the cannabis space, because like I said, the the industry is too versatile, it's too broad. It cuts across almost the department, but more time, the Department of Science and Innovation, CSIR, I would really like to see you really post the summit, doing some works with those students that can show interest, because Northwest, I believe there's chiefnesses, there's lands that can be used. I think Dr. Koitzi, we can also assist on that, making sure that your student can get exposure. Like the previous speaker from CSIR said that the student needs to be exposed to this. So with cannabis industry, obviously, we need that. It's not just a talk shop thing. We need workshops, we need trainings. Our student needs to be exposed to this, because we need to bring hope at the end of the day, not only to them, but to our country as we face economical crisis. With all these pandemics, we can also explore medicinals, indigenous medicinals to cure, because Gogo Pepsi may have so rising power to still keep the fire and the works of these indigenous plants being embraced. We can do that. Why not? We can do that anytime, as long as the lands can be secured. We need to tap into that. We are doing it with professor in the UFs, in the day Matsidiso, Professor Matsidiso, and I don't know why I forget Dr. Matsidiso's surname. Yeah, but we have Matshabisa. Dr. Matshabisa in the UFC is a pharmacologist. I've been conducting research with him. They've been getting my local harvested cannabis, merging with your Eastern Cape cannabis and Lesotho cannabis. You also have my stats.